Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the draft room. Had to think about it for a minute. I forgot the name of the show. I'm pretty sure that's it, though. This is the draft show of the Packernet Podcast Network. Appreciate you tuning in. I'm getting a late start because I'm spending so much time over at NFLDraftGrades.com. Lots of new updates I'm very, very excited about. Couple glitches that were showing up, and then a lot of just sweet updates. Added some cool visuals, as well as the biggest thing I'm most excited about is the Team Hub section. So what I've said about NFL Draft Grades is I wanted to... It's so hard, for me anyways, to take notes. There's so many notes. And so what I would do is I'd go over to Trello, which is a place where you can have these cards and add notes into them. And for every prospect, there would be one. But then for every team, there would be one. And then for every... It's just too much. And so I wanted a place where, for example, you can click on Fernando Mendoza. There's the usual stuff, his height, weight, all that stuff, as well as the overview, strengths, blah, 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 blah. But there's also a news feed where I can put in different news and all that kind of stuff. And if it's tied to a team, I can add a team. So I could put in a news feed, Packers interested in blah, blah, blah. And then I can put a Packers tag, so that if I'm searching for things, I can type in a Packers tag and I can find it. But I was going through that, adding a bunch of notes for a bunch of prospects from the Senior Bowl and all that stuff. And I realized I had a note about the Minnesota Vikings that we're going to talk about. I had no place to put it because I don't have a team thing. So now there's a Team Hub. And it'll pop up on the side. I can select. I still have to tweak some of this because it's not exactly how I want it. It's sort of a first try thing. But I can click on Vikings. There's a needs section, all this stuff. But then there's different notes things where I can add in different notes, rumors, whatever, in here. I'm also going to make it so this pops up when you're doing your mock drafts. So if the Titans are up and I'm not sure what to do at 4, I can click on the old Team Hub, go to Titans. I can maybe even have it set up so that the team you're drafting for will pop up. I'm not really sure. But then it'll kind of tell you. Tennessee Titans, I can look at some of the intel. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, because there's not that much news, we might as well dive into it. You can look at multiple outlets now have David Bailey firmly in the Titans shortlist at 4, with phrasing from Tony Pauline level sourcing that it would be shocking if the Tennessee Titans passed on him. In fact, I want to play that clip for you, since I have that saved here in my notes as well. Why don't we go ahead and play that? It's actually a little long, so I don't know if I'll play the whole thing, but let's do it anyways. Let me get this set up. Bing, bong, bing, bop, boop, and go.
But how does Robert Saleh being hired by Tennessee affect the 4th pick of the draft? I think it's going to have a significant impact. First thing you got to do is you got to look at the Mike Borgonzi, the general manager that came from Kansas City as the assistant to Brett Veach. He's going to be the guy that makes the pick. But I know for a fact, I'm sure for a fact, that Saleh is going to have a big input. And he's going to want David Bailey. He's going to want David Bailey with that 4th selection, the edge rusher from Texas Tech, because it's a system fit. It fits a need. He's an outstanding player. And just look at his history. I mean, he likes that type of player. When he was with the Jets, they drafted Jermaine Johnson. They traded back into the first round of the 2022 draft to get Jermaine Johnson. And then a year later, they shocked a lot of people by taking Will McDonald, another edge rusher with, I believe it was the 14th or 15th pick of the draft, over Jackson Smith-Njigba. A lot of people going to question that selection. But I think that...
Anyways, we'll leave it at that, but that's the point, right? So, great note, first of all, for those of you mock drafters out there. I think that's been a pretty standard pick, but obviously there's other guys that have been talked about. In fact, Ruben Bain might be as popular, if not more popular of a pick, assuming he is there at that pick, obviously. But these are the kind of notes that I'm adding in there. Why don't I get to my other one really quickly here, because there's only 2. And again, it's kind of a half an ad for my thing. Minnesota Vikings. I've actually been scouring, trying to find different little details like this, trying to get caught up. Now that I have this thing, I want to add some stuff. But I have to get started. It's 1:40 p.m., and I have 3 podcasts to do here. Vikings looking for an edge in round 1 in tight end on day 3. While most believe the Minnesota Vikings will take a cornerback with their pick in the first round, contrary to many mock drafts around the internet, people I've spoken to at the Senior Bowl tell me they believe the defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, will push for a pass rusher with the 18th pick of the 18th pick if a top-rated prospect falls into their laps, even though the Vikings defense fielded one of the better pass rushes in the league last season. 30-year-old Andrew Van Ginkel is in the final year of his contract, and Flores wants quantity at the position, believing a good pass rush covers deficiencies in the secondary. Keep this in the back of your mind. When the third day of the 2026 NFL Draft starts, the Vikings have been scouting tight ends heavily here at the Senior Bowl. I get the sense they will consider drafting a blocking tight end in the later rounds. It's still early, but remember the names Will Kazmarek of Ohio State and Nate Borkercher of Texas A&M University. I had to do that. I had to raw dog those names, man. I haven't looked up how to say those names. And, of course, there's not a single normal name in the freaking draft. But there you go. A couple of little details there for your mock drafts if you're going through them. I've got a few other notes, but I think I'm going to save those for the other podcast because they're more free agency related than the draft, although certainly those two things are tied together. But anyways, I will leave the news and notes at that. I think we've got a couple calls that I want to do. Otherwise, the plan is to keep doing what we're doing, but I was trying to figure out how to do this. I mentioned yesterday we'll stick with the weapon type of positions, and I said we'll either do tight end or running back. I think what we're going to do is both. So if you look at it, and it's kind of an interesting note as well, if you look at how these are split up, there's only 4 tight ends in the top 100. So, okay, what about the top 200? There are about 10 between 100 and 200. So first of all, it's interesting from the standpoint of in days 1 and 2, not a lot. Day 3, a lot. There are a lot of day 3, possibly third round, but day 3 prospects that are going to be going in the draft. And that's just through 200. There's more than 200 picks. If you go to out to 300 or whatever, there's even more. Not a ton, but there's more. And the same is true for running backs. If you look at the top 100, there's only 4. But again, there's about 10 between 100 and 200. So, do you do top 150 or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I figure, why don't we just do top 100 for tight end and running back? That'll be 4 in each. So we'll have this first segment, news and notes, and then we'll do the calls. Then we'll do tight end, then we'll do running back, and then we'll get out of here. All right? That will be the plan. Without further ado, I believe this is Drew from Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, Ryan, it's Drew from Green Bay. I had to try the new number out.
What's up, buddy?
And happy to call the...
By the way, very sorry, 608-561-3243. New callers go directly to the front of the line. Drew, please take it away. Sorry.
Draft room. But no, I did a mock draft like a week ago, so I just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
And I still have to figure out your new website. I'll get to it pretty soon, but this was done on PFF, and I did a little weird thing just to test it out, but see how it would play out. But basically, I got D'Angelo Pons, a cornerback from Indiana, in the second round, and he's kind of a smaller guy, but he plays big. And then after that, in the third round, I got Julian Neal, who's like a bigger guy. And then in the fourth round, so I went cornerback, and then fourth round, tackle from Arizona State, Max Ionacher. I don't know how to say his name, but apparently he's going in like the second round now. So
that's one of the names that I looked up, and I learned how to say it and immediately forgot. So I'll have to look that up again.
But I've seen Julian Neal fall to the fourth round, so we might have to play around with that position or get a center or something like that. And then Daquan Wright is tight end out of Ole Miss in the fifth. He's like a kind of pass catcher. PFF didn't have him, like, he has like a 0% contest rate and low blocking, but when I look him up, he must be a real traitsy guy because he's got like runs blocking is supposed to be one of his strengths, and I was seeing some film on him, and I do think he has some potential once he gets in the weight room. His arms are really small, but I think he can be like an all-around tight end eventually. And he's kind of got some Savion Williams to him, like catch up, where he can do something after the catch with the ball in his hand. And then Logan Fano, edge out of Utah. He's a traitsy guy, not a whole lot of protection, but he's got potential. Like 6'4", I think he's like 250, or maybe 6'5", 250. Bryce Foster, center out of Kansas. He's pretty good all around, and I think a pure center would be good. Obviously, I think a lot of Packer fans are on board with that now.
Yeah.
Halfback Noah Whittington from Oregon. He's just like a really solid back, kind of like I think he's like a shiftier back. But then you've got Jeremiah Wright, a guard. I threw that in. But tackle, center, and guard. We get backups that can progress into being something special, hopefully someday, and earn a starting spot eventually. But that's what I have. So what do you think of that? And I'll make a new one soon. But I think the cornerback with the quarters could be interesting to.
3 minutes caught you. Yeah, let's go. Let's do part 2 here.
Hey, Drew from Green Bay again, part 2. I almost had it timed perfectly, but 3-minute monster got me. Basically, I was just finishing up saying cornerback could be interesting with quarters, and that I didn't get a defensive tackle. That's like one of the downfalls to that mock draft.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking maybe we get one in free agency, or maybe we just like what we have. But I think it's good sometimes in mocks to like not hit every position, and just see how it plays out. And like maybe you get something in free agency, or you know what I mean? Like I feel like too often people just try to fill positions.
Exactly.
And sometimes you just gotta get the best talent. So anyways, have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not going to hammer you. I wouldn't really hammer anybody, to be honest, unless you did something like took a kicker in the first round, in which case you're not being serious. But I think you're right, and I've talked about that a lot, where when people do mock drafts, they take, the first pick has to be the biggest need, the second pick is the second biggest need, the third pick is the third biggest need, and it's just kind of, I get it, I get what you're doing, and I get why you're doing it, but it's not a very realistic thing. And the problem is when people evaluate your mock drafts, that's how they evaluate it. They'll see you take the third biggest need with the first pick, and it's like, why would you do that? We don't need that. We don't need that. We can get that in the later rounds. We don't need that. Stop doing that, guys. Stop doing that. First of all, that's what's going to happen. Okay? Maybe your team is very heavily in the drafting for need camp. Most teams are not going to be. There'll be some correlation there. You'll see, generally speaking, there's going to be a higher tendency to draft more of your needs or whatever. But yeah, you know what? You're going to finish this, and wasn't it just? I think it was just last year we drafted like no corners for Green Bay. I'm talking about. I keep forgetting this isn't just a Packers show. And it was like, what the heck? That was like our biggest need. You drafted none. It's like, yeah, dude, that's how it goes. There weren't a lot of good corners, and there weren't. We just looked at it. You know how many corners were better than Keyshawn? Like one, maybe. A lot of very injured guys that were not very productive. And it just is what it is. Sometimes the board just doesn't fall the way you want it. And so I understand this is how it goes with the NFL draft community. You drop a mock draft, everyone does like the crying, laughing faces, laughing at you, saying you're an idiot. I don't like that so much. I get that that's the way the community works or whatever, but I guess I just wish we were a little bit more curious and a little bit more willing to have discussions and try to talk through some different things and be a little bit more open-minded toward some possibilities and allowing people to draft based on their own boards if they have them, which I would encourage people to do. I think that's the 2.0 for NFL draft fans. We all do mocks. Very few of us do boards. And if we can do boards and use those boards in our mocks, which you can do on NFLDraftGrades.com. By the way, you get to pick the board you use and the board that the AI uses. So you can have the AI use a normal consensus board while you use your own board, and things can kind of fall a certain way. But the point is, pick the players that are the best players. And if you end up with a situation like this, like in my mind, defensive tackle is the biggest need for the Packers. That's my opinion. Very, very up for debate. I know corner is a big one for a lot of people. Offensive line is obviously big. You can have all kinds of, and we don't know exactly who's staying and who's going. That's going to make a big difference. But even saying defensive tackle is the biggest need, if what you're telling me is, I mean, I was open to it. It just never fell the way where I felt like this is the defensive tackle that we want or need. That's a good value now. That's how I would like you to draft. So many people will pick like I'm at pick 120 and I'll take the guy at 240 because it's a defensive tackle, and defensive tackle is what I think is the next most important. Don't do that. As far as the actual mock that you did, I did take some notes on it. I appreciate you guys doing this. Keep doing it because it's a great way for us to kind of familiarize ourselves with the prospects and with the names. I don't want to spend an entire episode going super in-depth on all these guys, but I think among Packer fans especially, these are some names that we're going to, guys like Pons, and, that's going to be a popular pick, I can tell. But real quick, let me just rip through a couple things. So D'Angelo Pons, projected right now to be a second-round guy, so kind of right in that range for where the Packers are probably looking. A little bit of a smaller, twitchy Asante Samuel type. You could call him Jair type, which has always been my issue with Pons to the Packers, is that they just got done. First of all, they like bigger guys in general because of durability, but they just got done with the Jair situation, which might scare them a touch. Then we go the opposite direction with Julian Neal, which, the Packers love to do the whole double up, triple up thing, so I'm all about it. Going the first two as your double up also is ultra aggressive, but Julian Neal is a different animal, very opposite, 6'2", 208 type of a guy, out of Arkansas, big physical boundary guy. You could say he's more of like a Rasul Douglas type, which, you got your Jair, you got your Rasul, etc. Max Ihenekor, which I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm not positive. Wait. Arizona State's massive right tackle, pronounced Ihenachor. They have a chore. Ihenachor. All right. Try to remember that. Ihenachor. Another big monster, which the Packers seem to be moving in that direction. They liked sort of the Zach Tom, smaller, versatile guys. They seem to be going more toward the Anthony Belton 6'6", 330 types. Could just be a coincidence, but I think it fits sort of the identity they're trying to build, so that definitely makes sense. And then we got Daquan Wright, which I think makes quite a bit of sense because he is sort of more of a Luke Musgrave type, which is probably the guy we'd be looking to potentially replace. He is a very, very fast 6'4", 255 guy that's kind of, threatening the seams type of a dude. Fano, for edge depth, I completely understand going that direction. He is, 34 pressures, 256 attempts. So he had a pretty good year, 75 pass rush grade, very consistent and good against the run too, which is awesome. At 260, he's not small, but he's also not massive. Kind of Trey Hendricksy, without, the high expectations of that. But if you're looking for kind of a mold that he's in, I think the biggest issue with him is that he's battled back from 2 ACL tears. That's going to be the massive red flag on him. But also why you get the value of getting a guy that late. I mean, he's priced appropriately. And then there's Bryce Foster, which I'm not sure about. PFF has him listed at 310. I also see him at 330, so I don't know exactly where he's at. But he's 3 years at Texas A&M, 2 at Kansas. Seems to be pretty solid in run and pass blocking, although kind of all over the place. Getting better every year at pass blocking. Run blocking is a little bit up and down, but not bad at it, which is great. And like you said, he's a pure center. I do think that would, as far as would I guess the Packers do it, the answer is no, especially based on Gutekunst's latest press conference when they deliberately asked him that question. And he's like, yeah, no, we like versatility. Yeah, okay. Not to say they wouldn't, but, obviously they prize the versatility. Then we got Noah Whittington, 5'8", 203, kind of a little hammer dude, low center of gravity guy. Had an 89 rushing grade out of Oregon, 6.4 yards per attempt. He's been fantastic for a long time. I mean, he 2 years at Western Kentucky, 4 at Oregon, and ever since he got his first start at Western Kentucky, his grades are just phenomenal, and his yards per attempt are too. 85, 83, 79, 78, and 89, his best year this past year. His yards per attempt, 6.1, 5.6. 2023, he must have had some injuries. 4.6 and 6.4. Solid football player. Also, I think is pretty well known. Let me check his stats here for being a solid receiver. I don't know about that. That might be kind of hyping him up a little bit too much. 98 yards and a touchdown. Could be one of those things, too, where he has the ability. It's just that they didn't use him in that capacity as much, and somebody may also look to kind of add that, kind of like what we did with Josh Jacobs. Kind of a Raheem Mostert type of player. He also, though, did have ACL. That's what that injury was in 2023. So, obviously, you know, he's got 2 years of football after that. So, doesn't seem to have affected him too negatively, or at the very least, there's not a lot of people saying, I wonder if he lost his explosion and all that kind of stuff. You got 2 years worth of film and data to go off of. And then we got Jeremiah Wright, and oh my Lord, is this guy massive. Primarily a right guard. He has played a little bit of left guard, including in his senior year. 6'5", about 350. About 345 to 350. My goodness. Massive, powerful human being. The grades are so-so. 67 pass blocking, 67 run blocking. It's not necessarily elite, but for a, presumably 7th round guy is where you grabbed him. It kind of reminds me of who the heck was that defensive tackle we got? He didn't do much, but he's just a giant human being. I think he's still on the team too. Anyways, it's something like that. Like, let's just get a big freaking monster, teach him how to play football, and see how it goes. Anyways, bro, I appreciate you. We got to get out of here and get to work on some other prospects, but appreciate you calling in. Be sure to check out NFLDraftGrades.com. Any issues that you have, let me know, and I will get them fixed very quickly. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Alrighty, let's get started with the tight ends. Again, we have 4 top 100 tight ends. They are from lowest to highest. Michael Trigg out of Baylor, Max Clare out of Ohio State, Eli Stowers and Vanderbilt, and then Kenyon Sadiq, who is the guy that everyone's going to be fighting over in the first round. It's funny, when I went through and did the mock draft, it was incredible how many people doing mock drafts all thought they were getting Sadiq. Every team was like, oh, we should get Sadiq. We should get Sadiq. It's like, you understand there are 5-6 teams in front of you that have already decided we need Sadiq. You're not getting that guy. There's no way. But being the only first-round prospect or freaking guy in the first 2 rounds, basically, he's going to be in pretty high demand. If you need a tight end, I mean, your options are pretty limited. But all right, let's get started with Mr. Michael Trigg, listed at 6'4", 240, 23 and a half years old on draft day. Height and weight, I think, is still unofficial. I don't believe he was at any of the bowl games. His family owns a barbecue joint down in Florida, right between Raymond James Stadium and the waterfront. So, first of all, I have an idea where he's going to want to go. Like a lot of tight ends, he was a pretty legit basketball player. Averaged 22.6 points per game as a junior, 20 points per game as a sophomore. And he was recruited to play both football and basketball at USC. He's also very close friends with Jackson Dart. The two transferred together from USC to Ole Miss and became roommates. So there's a couple notable things here. He actually went to USC because he wanted to be close to his mom. So I believe his dad is still over there in Florida with the barbecue joint. So you got Florida, California, and now the Jackson Dart connection out in New York. Not like he gets to pick, I'm just saying. Worth noting. But if we take a peek at PFF, he spent 1 year at USC, transferred to Ole Miss 2022 and 2023, then transferred to Baylor, and that's where things really started to take off. He started getting more opportunities, and his grades kind of shot up. In Baylor, 30 receptions, 392 yards, 3 touchdowns, 73 PFF grade. 2025, it was 50 receptions, almost 700 yards, 13.9 yards per reception, 6 touchdowns, 77 receiving grade. He does have some drop issues. His career drop rate is 10.7%. It was 12.3% this past year. Quite a bit of accolades in 2025. John Mackey Award finalist. He was top 3 nationally. All-American second team, All-American third team, first team All-Big 12, All-Texas first team, Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award semifinalist, Senior Bowl invitee, PFF midseason Mackey Award winner, first tight end in Baylor history to earn All-American honors. He is, as you would expect, the 6'4", 240. He's a receiving tight end. You're getting the receiving ability minus the blocking ability. And obviously, even with the receiving, you've got issues when it comes to concentration, things like drops and whatnot. There's also questions via Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports. Says there are whispers of just maturity issues, work ethic, stuff like that. Like, does he want to be great? Is he locked in? He's also got a few injuries here. He had a knee injury in October of 2021, which was season ending, even though it did not require any surgery. Then he goes to Ole Miss in 2022. Missed the middle part of the season due to a handful of injuries. He had a shoulder injury in September of 2025, which he played through, and then missed the final game of the season due to an unspecified injury in November of 2025. As far as comps, you're looking at probably somebody like Evan Ingram, Gerald Everett, those types of guys. Then on the consensus board at 82 is Max Clare, 6'5", 243, 22 years old. He spent 3 years at Purdue, had a big breakout year, his third year at Purdue, 51 receptions, 684 yards, 13.4 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns, 86 PFF receiving grade, and a 105 passer rating when targeted. With that fame and fortune, goes ahead and transfers to Ohio State and sees a little bit of a dip in his production. 43 receptions, 448 yards, 2 touchdowns, 66 receiving grade, 69 overall. The run blocking, though, was actually a big plus. He was never really very good at it. Gets to Ohio State and jumps from the 40s and 50s up to a 72 run blocking grade. It's pretty impressive. Not a lot of really good run blocking tight ends out there, especially at that size. I'm guessing when you get to the pros, it's not going to translate quite as well, but just having a guy that can also be a little scrappy and not just a complete liability, I think is a big bonus. His dad, though, Andy Clare, former Boston College nose guard. His dad, the nose guard, said he's part of a big family that's been competitive. His grandpa played college football, his uncles played college football, and I played college football. If the kids love it and they wanted it, we were willing to do whatever it took to get them there. His younger brother, Luke, also played for tight end. They played, for Purdue together, and both of them were tight ends before he transferred, obviously. Luke Clare. They actually played against each other when Ohio State played Purdue in 2025. As you'd expect, again, a receiving type, known for his route running, separation ability, ball skills, attacking the seams, football IQ. The negatives are going to be the same for all these guys. They're smaller guys. His drops aren't quite as bad, though, at 5.7%. He also has a higher contested catch rate at almost 60%. So similar type of player, just probably seen as a slightly better receiver. Then we've got Eli Stowers, who's at 79 on the consensus board, tight end out of Vanderbilt. This guy, smaller, 6'4", 235, but top tier receiver, if you look at the grades. Spent his first year at Texas A&M, didn't really play, transfers to New Mexico State, 36 receptions, 361 yards, 76 receiving grade. Then he goes to Vanderbilt and really breaks out. 50 receptions, 644 yards, 5 touchdowns, 89 receiving grade, 87 overall grade. 60, and then the 2025, 62 receptions, 770 yards, 12.5 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns, 82 overall, 85 receiving grade. Really only had one quote-unquote bad game. It was a game where he had 2 drops in the game against Alabama. 53 receiving grade. Otherwise, very consistently solid on a week-to-week basis. Had double to triple-digit yards every single game. Had at least 3 receptions every single game, up to 12 against Auburn. 15 targets, 12 receptions, 122 yards. Against Texas, he had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he's had some big games. Has a career drop rate of 3.9%. It was a little higher in 2025, but generally speaking, very, very good hands. 2.34 yards per route run. a career passer rating when targeted of 109.6. His dad, Donald Stowers, former defensive back at New Mexico State, became a high school football coach in Texas for multiple decades before joining the corporate workforce when Eli reached middle school. He trained Eli relentlessly from childhood, including the infamous overspeed training sessions running downhill at full speed on hills near their Denton home. His mom, Tina, is also a college athlete. His sister, Kendall, is a volleyball player at Texas A&M. Overcame 4 concussions to transfer to A&M and help lead the team to the first ever Final Four in 2025. I guess in high school at Denton Guyer, he was a 4-star dual-threat quarterback, number 4 dual-threat quarterback nationally, number 17 overall recruit in Texas in the class of 2021, passed for almost 7,000 yards, rushed for 3,323 yards, totaled 105 touchdowns in 3 seasons as Guyer's starter. He said, I was going to be in the NFL as a quarterback. That was my dream growing up. That's all I knew. In the 2019 Texas 6A Division II state championship game against Austin Westlake, Stowers suffered a devastating torn PCL and meniscus. The intensive rehab combined with pre-existing shoulder injury, which developed into a torn labrum, destroyed his throwing mechanics. His father first thought it might have been the yips. When Stowers arrived at Texas A&M, he could no longer throw a football properly. So, pretty tragic story, but also very impressive that the guy showed up as a quarterback, decides, I think I'm going to be a tight end, and then goes on to be a very productive and talented tight end. He was the John Mackey Award winner, which is for the nation's best tight end, the William V. Campbell Trophy winner, which is the academic Heisman with a $25,000 scholarship, unanimous first-team All-American, one of only 13 unanimous selections nationally, first-team All-SEC, Walter Camp, first-team All-American, AFCA, first-team All-American, FWAA, first-team All-American, AP, first-team All-American, Sporting News, first-team All-American. He completed a master's in finance in May of 2025 at Vanderbilt, which is obviously quite impressive. He's active in Brothers B, which is a Vanderbilt on-campus ministry, volunteered at Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital, visited veterans hospitals, Dancing Doors fundraiser, does a lot of off-the-field stuff. Sounds like a really cool guy. Was clocked in apparently in-game at 21.43 miles an hour, pretty quick for a tight end. Former high jump state champ with elite vertical, reaches impressive top speeds, has excellent body control in the air, climbing the ladder. As far as strengths and weaknesses, again, you've got a receiver that's probably not a blocker. I mean, it's going to be the same notes for all these guys. But the off-the-field character stuff, as well as the production and the grades and all that, put him heads and tails above some of the other guys. Again, all the accolades, 3.92 GPA with a master's degree in finance at Vanderbilt, crazy, deeply faith-driven, team captain, overcoming devastating injuries through perseverance. Some NFL comps, you got guys like Harold Fannin and Brock Bowers. Obviously, you probably stick with Fannin on that. He's a modern F-weapon, oversized slot receiver who wins with receiving skills, versatility, and scheme rather than traditional tight end traits. Should not be used as a classic Y tight end. All right, finally, Kenyon Sadiq is the guy everybody wants at tight end right now. 3 years at Oregon, listed at 6'3", 245 pounds. Hasn't really played a ton. Again, not only just 3 years, but he was targeted only 7 times in his rookie year, 27 times in his sophomore year, and then his junior year this year was his first time actually getting a decent chunk. 67 targets, 51 receptions, 76 receiving rate, 560 yards, 11 yards per reception, 8 touchdowns, 69 receiving grade. 1.72 yards per route run. His drop rate is 9%, which is relatively high. Contested catch rate is at 53%. Former 4-star athlete, recruit from Skyline High School in Idaho Falls, Idaho. He's a multi-sport standout in football, basketball, and track. Finally won the tight end 1 job this year in 2025. Primarily used as a flex H-back, tight to the line, also used in the slot, out wide, in line as a backfield mover, all that stuff. But H-back primarily. He was used as a key perimeter and backside blocker. PFF gave him a 66 run blocking grade, which is fine. Some comps for Sadiq, guys like Dalton Kincaid, Jonnu Smith. Jonnu similar to that the chess piece H-back kind of a guy. Some injuries he's had, 2025 lower body leg issue versus Penn State, left the game limping after a defender landed on his leg. He was able to walk off under his own power. Described later as a lower body injury that left him very limited. Had a touchdown grab versus Rutgers, landed awkwardly, was managed carefully the rest of the day. Dan Lanning later referenced lingering injuries since that Rutgers game. He missed the game against Iowa with an unknown injury and was listed as very limited in his performance against Indiana. So definitely have been some injury issues throughout the season specifically. No real off-the-field stuff. Seen as one of those hard-working, tough, grind-it-out type of guys. And I'll mention this. I think just based on what I've said so far, it's kind of like, so what the heck makes Kenyon Sadiq so much better than the rest of these guys? Because they're all very similar. They're all in that 6'3", 6'4", 235 to 245 range. They're all kind of the same guy. And his grades aren't even as good as a lot of other guys. Plus, he's had, minor injury stuff. What the heck is the deal? We're all going to figure that out at the Combine. The Combine, I think, is when he's expected to absolutely blow up. We'll see how these things go. But he's the guy that's expected to kind of blow everybody away at the Combine. And that's when everyone's going to understand, okay, that's the guy we want. Doesn't mean he's going to actually be great, but I'm just kind of explaining based on my understanding of why he's heads and tails above the rest of these guys, despite being very similar in a lot of ways. That's why. Gifted, athletic freak. And I know guys like Dane Brugler have talked about Sadiq possibly falling. I think you always have to consider that there's not a lot of tight ends and somebody may want to reach. But the question is, is there going to be more hype from media types and fan people who see him destroy at the Combine and less hype maybe from teams who are saying, yeah, but on the field, I don't know that he's worthy of being a top 20 pick or prospect. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on these things, watch as they go up and down and whatnot, but that's kind of the conflict point right now. It's just kind of sitting right now where he is, but I think at the Combine you're going to see an explosion of Sadiq, and it may end up being where he flies up the boards and then drops back down because teams are not going to react to that. They already know what he can do physically, but we'll see. We'll see how much teams actually really want this guy. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will look at the top running backs in the class. All right, let's get started with our first running back on the consensus board at 83, Emmett Johnson, listed at 5'11", 200. Big-time playmaker for Nebraska. He's played a good amount of snaps. He's got 457 attempts under his belt as a running back. But you can see the ridiculous amount of growth. In fact, going prior to 2025, there's a lot of talk about him and, when is he going to take that step, whatever. He did. He exploded. So year one as a rookie, 89 attempts, 411 yards, 4.6 per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 72 rushing grade. Okay, cool. Next year, it goes from 89 to 117 attempts, 597 yards, 5.1 per attempt, 1 touchdown, 2 fumbles, 78 rushing grade. Obviously not ideal, but everything got better, aside from the touchdowns and fumbles. Then this year, 251 attempts, like doubles last year's. 1,451 yards, 5.8 per attempt, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception, 86 grade, 88 rushing grade, 2.95 yards after contact, 66 missed tackles forced. His longest run was 70 yards, had 36 carries over 10 yards, 13 over 15 yards. In addition, go ahead. Do it.
Someone is at the front door.
There we go. In addition, he's kind of known for his receiving ability. He added 46 receptions with a minimum of 2 receptions per game up to 8, 370 yards, 85% catch rate. 8 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. So he's kind of one of those guys that can do a little bit of everything. Obviously, more of a runner, very successful runner. Again, almost a 90 PFF grade rushing. Very consistent on a week-to-week basis. Also, on top of being a playmaker, guys that makes people miss and gets those extra yards, big-time athlete. The coach over at Nebraska had talked about how his metrics are one of the best on the entire team. Videos of him out there at 5'11", just dunking all over. He's like jumped over a coach and dunked into the basket. So he is a serious athlete. He's originally from Minnesota, so you also like that kind of Minnesota grit, that toughness, that cold weather kind of a thing. He also went to Nebraska, which is not exactly, Palm Beach. So a team looking for that cold weather back that can kind of handle that, but also bring sort of that small, shifty elusiveness with some speed behind it. Pretty solid prospect. Then we got Jonah Coleman. I made jokes before that Brian Gutekunst cannot turn down a 5'11", 220 guy. I think that's what it was, 5'11", 220. It was a thing for a while where every single running back was 5'11", 220. I don't know what it was about that. Well, if he liked the 5'11", 220s, he's going to love Mr. Jonah Coleman. 5'9", 228. Freaking absolute wrecking ball. 4 years in college, 2 at Arizona, 2 at Washington. His rushing grades in those 4 years, 87, 93, 87, 84. PFF had talked about him as having, I think, like one of the highest career PFF grades in college football. It's a metric I don't have access to, but they do. A little bit more inconsistent on the week-to-week, but no question, very dominant. 15 touchdowns. Not surprisingly, a guy his size has a nose for the end zone. He ended this season, down a little bit on the overall. His grade was down. The yards were down to 758. The yards per attempt, 4.8. The touchdowns, though, up to 15. There was some talk, though, about his usage being cut down to make way for another running back. So he was kind of splitting carries and was kind of taking a back seat. So you could, what the heck? Spilled on myself. Like, wait a minute, what is that? If you wanted to get a better picture of him, I think the best picture is 2024. 2024 is when he was the bell cow back. 2024 is when he had 192 attempts for 1,060 yards, 5.5 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 87 grade, and was much more consistent. He only had one kind of down game, and that was against Oregon, where he had 10 carries for 10 yards and a touchdown, 49 rushing grade. And then if you want even better than that, you go to his final year in Arizona in 2023, where he had a 93 rushing grade, 6.8 yards per attempt. So there's no lack of great film on him. I think the only thing you'd investigate is maybe why he's gone down a little bit. Could there be some issues that he's having with injuries or wear and tear because he's been playing a lot of football, especially those big dudes, the big bruiser types. I think also it's worth noting that he was kind of used as more of just the goal line back. Was that just to give somebody else an opportunity, or is it actually a question of can he be a full 3-4 down back? That's going to be kind of the biggest question. And I don't know that you take him. We're talking back of the second round ish here, top of the third. I don't know that you take him unless you believe that he can be more than just a goal line back. So that must be the assumption by at least enough teams. Then we got Jadarian Price, and it's kind of an interesting situation because Jadarian Price is number 2 on the consensus big board. Obviously, people will disagree, but that's where he's at right now. He plays for Notre Dame. The number 1 running back by a mile, top 10 potential draft pick this year is Jeremiah Love, also a Notre Dame running back. And so it's somewhat interesting, first and foremost, because Jadarian Price is a very talented running back. He probably is better than a lot of people would want to give him credit for because he's overshadowed by Jeremiah Love. He obviously had very limited production because he was behind Jeremiah Love. A lot of teams wanted Jadarian Price to transfer, like, please come over here, be our running back. He decided to stay loyal to the program, and be the number 2 running back / kick returner for the team. By the way, very good kick returner. Had a 100-yard kick return that I just watched. He broke 2 to 3 different tackles before breaking away. So very talented, very strong. I mean, he's not quite built like Jonah Coleman, 5'11", 210, but he's a big, jacked dude who plays and runs physical ball. Very similar to Coleman. 3 years in college, all 3 years at Notre Dame, which is great. Not very old, not a ton of tread on the tires, and his grades were 83, 80, and 80. So very consistently good. Week to week is a little bit iffy, but he also has limited snaps. And so, for example, in a game where you only run the ball, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, it's harder to kind of stabilize your grades, A guy that's a very good running back that carries the ball 15, 16, 17 times is going to have more opportunities to overcome a couple, rough runs. But as you could probably tell by the kick return ability, he's a home run guy. He is a sort of straight line. Any one of these can take it to the house type of guys. Let me look at his kick returns here real quick. So he has 22 total returns for about 800 yards. His longest so he did in 23 and 25. His longest in 23 was 99 yards, and in 2025 it was 102 yards. He has 3 total return touchdowns, 1 in 2023, 2 in 2025. So, he's in his average yards per return are 36.3 yards. It was 37.8 in 2025. So, he is that home run threat type of a guy. He is seen as a decent receiver. I think the question marks are about his pass blocking, which obviously that's sort of that's a big one. I mean, if you're going to be out there on all 3 downs, or third down, you have to be able to block. So that'll be a question for some teams and whether they feel comfortable and how comfortable they feel with him. But no question, he's a very talented, very dangerous, low mileage prospect. Then we get the truly elite running back prospect, Jeremiah Love, listed at 6 foot, 214 pounds. I mean, right out of the gate, as a first-year guy at Notre Dame, 77 rushing grade. So right away, pretty solid. 1 touchdown, 0 fumbles, 5.3 yards per attempt on just a handful of attempts. 2024, he gets the job. 162 attempts, 1,100 yards, 6.9 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns, 0 fumbles, 92 rushing grade, 91 overall grade. This past year, 199 attempts, 1,300 yards, 6.9 yards per attempt again, 18 touchdowns, just 1 fumble. So in his 2.3 years there, 433 attempts, 2,874 yards, 6.6 yards per attempt, 36 touchdowns to just 1 fumble. He has 4.35 yards after contact per attempt. And on top of being just unbelievably elite, and we're talking week to week to week. I mean, every week is consistent. His lowest graded game was his first week of the season when he had a 67 rushing grade. The next was the last week of the season. He had a 68 grade, which is basically good. A bad day from him is a good day. But beyond all that, he's 20 years old. He's not even 21 yet. So his breakout age is 19? Maybe 18? But I mean, I don't even need to super explain the guy again. I feel like, I don't know, maybe you guys are into it, but the scouting report stuff can get kind of repetitive. It's the same stuff over and over again that people say to make themselves try to sound smart. But he is a do everything back. It's all the athleticism, the vision, the patience, the burst, all of those things wrapped up into a prototypical big body, 6 foot 214, but it's also the well-roundedness. It's a guy that can not only run, but he can catch, he can block. He can not only catch, but he's such a good receiver that he's the type of guy that you can put in the slot, you can split him out wide, there's just no restrictions with him. There's nothing you have to pare down your offense for with him. He's nothing but an asset across the board, on top of being an athletic freak that's really good at running the football. So the only real question with him, and obviously, again, you never really know if somebody's going to pan out when they get to the pros. It's the other thing I don't like about NFL draft season is like, oh, he's a guaranteed superstar. No, nobody is. There's no such thing. No, this guy's definitely, no, we don't know. We don't know. But he's incredibly gifted, and I think, you would be a disgrace of a franchise to not be able to figure out how to use him properly. But the only real question is, where does he go? When does he get drafted? I think simply based on skill, some people have him as the number one player in the draft. I saw somebody, I think it was Booger McFarland, say he was the best college player, period, which obviously a lot of people disagreed with. But just to give you an idea of how, where he ranks, go ahead.
Someone is at the front door.
Thank you. It's my co-host. So he is a top prospect just based on talent, but he's a running back. And I know people say, well, it doesn't matter and all that stuff, but you also have to figure out, you have to understand the financials of it. You draft him in the top 3, and you're paying him as already a guy that is proven to be an elite running back as opposed to a guy that might be an elite running back. You just don't really know. And a lot of teams are not willing to give that big contract and forego the 4 years of not having to pay that big contract for a guy that hasn't really done anything, hasn't really proved anything. So that's kind of one of the big reasons why you don't want to, teams aren't going to want to do that with running backs, linebackers, et cetera, that high up, because you're giving them that premium contract in their rookie contract. But you never know. If somebody believes enough, then so be it, we're paying it. But all right, I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I got for now. Again, be sure to get your calls in at, 1 second, 608-561-3243. I don't even remember it yet. 608-561-3243. Appreciate everybody that's called in already so far. You guys are fantastic. Beer Cheese, I see you over there. We'll get to your call tomorrow. Be sure to check out NFLDraftGrades.com. Go create a board. Go do a mock draft. Go live your best life. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.